Prejudice often wears the mask of small-town politeness. In a quiet diner, two deputies approach an elderly black couple who are quietly celebrating their anniversary, enjoying a peaceful morning together. The officers expect compliance, their threats as casual as refilling coffee cups. But they have no idea who's about to enter the scene. The couple's son, a Marine Corps veteran whose calm silence conceals years of discipline and strength. With every moment, the deputies feel more in control until one decisive instant shatters their illusion. The man they intended to intimidate becomes the force they never anticipated. Before we dive deeper, tell us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe. Tomorrow's story is one you won't want to miss. Through the bedroom window, morning sunlight gently lit Evelyn Carter's face as she watched her small town of Millbrook awaken, the same view she had cherished for 47 years. Beyond the neat mailboxes and down the gentle slope of Oak Street, young maple trees now stretched tall. Her fingers traced soft patterns on the glass, fading like old memories. Behind her, familiar footsteps creaked on the wooden floor. Samuel entered carrying 2 steaming mugs of coffee, filling their sunlit bedroom with rich aroma. Though his movements were measured with age, his posture remained proud and his dignity intact. "Your coffee, Miss Evelyn," he said softly, using the playful formality they'd shared since their days teaching and working at the post office. His voice was warm, but a flicker of uncertainty lingered in his eyes. "Thank you, Mr. Carter," she replied, holding the mug with both hands. The warmth grounded her in the moment. She took a careful sip, watching Samuel over the rim. His Sunday best lay neatly pressed on the bed, the navy suit she'd helped choose last spring. "You're up early," Samuel remarked as he settled into the cushioned chair by the dresser. "Just thinking about our plans," Evelyn answered, a slight smile breaking through. "Remember when these streets were so quiet on Saturday mornings? Now everyone's rushing about." "Times change," Samuel said thoughtfully, "but some things don't." He paused, studying her. "You're still uneasy about going to Main Street Diner, aren't you?" The question hung in the air, heavy with last night's conversation. Evelyn placed her coffee on the windowsill. "Maybe we could celebrate here at home. I could make your favorite chicken and dumplings." "Evelyn!" Samuel's voice was gentle but firm. "We've talked about this. I won't have my wife cooking alone on our anniversary. Besides," he added with a small smile, "you know how I feel about Linda's maple peck and pancakes." "The diner's changed," Samuel continued. "The whole town has. It's not like when Marcus was little and we took him there for ice cream sodas." Evelyn nervously twisted her wedding band. "Maybe we should try that new place across town." Samuel set his mug down with a firm clink. "Number Main Street Diner has been our tradition for 30 years. I won't have us sneaking off somewhere else just because—" "Just because what?" Evelyn interrupted gently, turning to face him fully. "Just because last month Mrs. Henderson's son and his partner gave you those looks," she said softly. "Because people still whisper sometimes. Because some folks here still can't stand to see a dignified black couple enjoying their breakfast in peace," Samuel finished, his words steady though his eyes burned with quiet fire. "Which is exactly why we're going. I refuse to let fear or foolishness steal our joy. Not today, not after all these years." Evelyn crossed to him and placed a hand on his shoulder, feeling the tension and stubborn strength that had carried him through decades of unfairness. "I don't want trouble, Samuel, not on our day." "Living in fear is trouble enough," he replied, covering her hand with his own. His wedding band caught the morning light. "Remember our first anniversary? That little cafe in Birmingham?" Evelyn smiled despite herself. "Where the waitress spilled coffee all over your new tie, and you just smiled, cleaned up, ordered another cup, and tipped her extra." Samuel chuckled. "Maybe it helped sweeten that sour disposition of yours." "You were always braver than me," Evelyn sighed, squeezing his shoulder. "No," Samuel said, pulling her close. "You were the one who marched, who taught those children even when half the town said you shouldn't. You stood by me when it got hard, when the rumors spread." They stood together in silence for a moment, holding each other as the morning light grew stronger. Outside, a car horn honked and children's laughter floated up from the street. "Well, I suppose I should get dressed," Evelyn said at last, managing a small smile. "Can't have my husband taking me to breakfast in my housecoat." "That's my girl," Samuel said softly, kissing Evelyn's forehead. "Wear that yellow dress, the one with the flowers. You always light up the room in that one." Evelyn nodded, gathering her courage along with her clothes. As she dressed, she watched Samuel straighten his tie in the mirror, each movement precise, dignified, as always. The familiar routine helped calm her nerves. Once ready, Samuel offered his arm with a gentle flourish. "Shall we, Mrs. Carter?" Evelyn slipped her arm through his, feeling the steady strength that had carried them through the years. Together, they descended the stairs and stepped outside, greeted by warm morning sunshine. "It's going to be a beautiful day," Samuel said, the light bathing their faces. "Trust me, my love, this will be an anniversary to remember." The bell above Main Street Diner chimed as Samuel held the door for Evelyn. The comforting scent of coffee and maple syrup wrapped around them, a sweet reminder of countless Saturday mornings spent in their favorite booth. Sunlight streamed through large windows, catching dust motes dancing in the air and highlighting worn red cushions. Linda Harper looked up from behind the counter, her face breaking into a genuine smile that crinkled the corners of her eyes. "Well, if it isn't my favorite couple." She hurried over, wiping her hands on her apron. "Happy anniversary, you two." "Thank you, Linda," Evelyn said softly, tightening her grip on Samuel's arm as she noticed a few heads turn their way. A middle-aged man quickly returned to his newspaper, while two women in a corner booth whispered behind menus. "Your usual spot is waiting," Linda said, guiding them to their favorite booth by the window. The vinyl seats squeaked as they settled in. Samuel helped Evelyn with her light jacket before taking his own seat. Linda handed them laminated menus, though everyone knew they were just for show. "Coffee's fresh, and I just pulled a batch of those maple pecan pancakes out of the kitchen," she winked at Samuel. "Had a feeling you might be stopping by today." "You know me too well," Samuel chuckled, his deep voice carrying across the diner. More heads subtly turned, and Evelyn noticed a young mother pull her child closer in the booth across from them. "Just give me a minute," Linda said softly, touching Evelyn's shoulder. "I've got something special for today." As she walked away, Evelyn traced the familiar cracks in the Formica tabletop with her fingernail. "Maybe we should have come earlier," she murmured. "It's getting crowded." "This is exactly when we always come," Samuel replied firmly, reaching across the table to cover her hand. "We're not doing anything wrong, Evelyn." She nodded, trying to ease her shoulders. The diner buzzed with its usual Saturday energy, the clink of silverware, hiss of the coffee maker, scattered conversations about weekend plans and local gossip. Still, she felt the weight of sideways glances, subtle shifts away from their booth. Linda returned carrying a small crystal vase filled with yellow daisies and white baby's breath. "Every anniversary deserves flowers," she said, setting them gently in the center of the table. Leaning in, she lowered her voice. "Don't mind what folks around here think. This is your day." Tears pricked Evelyn's eyes. "Linda, you didn't have to." "Hush now," Linda smiled kindly. "I've known you both too long to do any less." She straightened and pulled out her order pad. "Now let me guess. Maple pecan pancakes for the gentleman and a Western omelet for the lady?" Samuel's face softened into a genuine smile. "With extra cheese, hash browns extra crispy," Linda finished, scribbling notes and adding, "2 coffees, cream for Mrs. Carter, black for Mr. Carter." She tucked her pencil behind her ear. "Coming right up." As Linda walked away, Evelyn relaxed a bit. The flowers were lovely, their bright petals catching the morning light. She remembered similar blooms in her wedding bouquet all those years ago. "See," Samuel said softly, "some things don't change." Linda's still Linda. Yes, Evelyn agreed with a small smile, watching Linda chat easily with other customers. Her presence somehow made the space feel safer. The diner's old ceiling fan spun lazily overhead as the coffee machine hissed out another fresh pot. A young waitress brought their coffee, setting the cups down without meeting their eyes. Samuel thanked her quietly, dignity intact. He prepared Evelyn's coffee just the way she liked, 2 creams stirred carefully before sliding the cup to her. "Remember our first time here?" he asked, sipping his own coffee. "Must have been 82 or 83. Marcus was just learning to read the menu by himself." Evelyn's smile grew warmer. He insisted on ordering for all of us, pronounced quesadilla like Queen Sedalia. The memory warmed her more than the coffee. Linda let him practice reading the specials board every Saturday after that. Outside the large front window, morning traffic flowed steadily down Main Street. The hardware store was setting out its sidewalk display, and old Mr. Jenkins swept the barbershop's sidewalk just as he had every Saturday for decades. The scene was so familiar, so peaceful, until a black and white patrol car pulled into a spot directly across from their window. The car's chrome gleamed in the sunlight as Deputy Royce stepped out, adjusting his belt with practiced authority. Officer Henderson stepped out of the passenger side, scanning the street with a cautious look, like a man bracing for trouble. Samuel's hand found Evelyn's once more as the officers approached the diner's entrance. His grip was steady, but tense beneath the surface. The bell above the door chimed again, sharper this time, cutting through the sudden hush that fell over the diner. The usual cheerful morning buzz faded as Deputy Royce and Officer Henderson entered. Conversations paused mid-sentence. Forks froze halfway to mouths, and coffee cups settled softly back onto saucers. Even the oldies playing behind the counter faded to a low hum. Evelyn noticed Linda's welcoming smile tighten. The diner owner stood straighter, clutching the coffee pot firmly as she nodded toward the officers. "Morning, gentlemen," she said. "No coffee today, Linda," Royce replied slowly, removing his mirrored sunglasses with deliberate slowness. His eyes swept the room under the guise of casual observation, but Evelyn saw the sharp, assessing gaze beneath. When his eyes landed on their booth, they lingered just a moment too long. Henderson followed closely behind, thumbs hooked on his belt. The fluorescent lights caught the shine of his badge as he took up position near the counter, strategically facing the Carter's table. Despite his size, his presence felt larger than life. Samuel took a measured sip of coffee, calm on the surface, but Evelyn caught the faint tremor in his hand as he set the cup down and let out a quiet sigh. Under the table, his knee pressed reassuringly against hers, a silent gesture honed over decades. "Just doing our routine morning patrol," Royce announced to the diner, though his gaze never left their corner. He weaved through the tables, exchanging greetings with familiar faces, but Evelyn's stomach tightened with each step closer to their booth. She focused on the yellow daisies Linda had brought, counting petals to steady her nerves. 7, 8, 9. "Well, well," Royce's voice interrupted her thoughts as he stopped at their table, resting one hand casually on his belt near his holster. "Mr. and Mrs. Carter don't usually see you folks out this time of day." "It's our anniversary," Samuel replied evenly, his deep voice carrying the same dignity it had through 50 years of similar encounters. "We're regulars here." "Anniversary, huh?" Henderson called out from his spot by the counter, his tone polite but edged. "How long have you two been around these parts?" Evelyn gripped her coffee cup tighter. "Our whole lives, born and raised." "That right," Royce said, pulling out his notepad but making no move to write. "Mind if I see some ID, just routine? Had reports of suspicious activity nearby?" Samuel's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. "Is there a specific reason for asking, Deputy?" "We're just having breakfast." The diner fell completely silent. Even the kitchen noises stopped. Evelyn could feel every eye fixed on their booth. Linda stood frozen behind the counter, coffee pot in hand, her face carefully composed but concerned. Royce's tone grew sharper. You wouldn't want to make this difficult, would you? Just doing our job, protecting and serving. Henderson moved closer, casting a shadow over the table. Speaking of protecting, he added, someone reported a missing wallet earlier. Brown leather, about this size. He demonstrated with his hands. You folks haven't seen anything like that, have you? The unspoken accusation hung heavy in the air. Evelyn twisted her napkin tightly, her thoughts turning to Marcus, his steady gaze, his calm command to stay composed and record everything. Her phone lay heavy in her purse beside her. No, Samuel answered carefully, word by word. We haven't seen any wallet. And I don't appreciate the implication, Henderson said. Royce leaned forward, both hands pressing on the table, nudging the vase of flowers off-center. No implication, Mr. Carter. Just questions. That's our job. Unless you have an issue with law enforcement doing theirs. Samuel shifted, the vinyl seat creaking, his shoulders squared, jaw clenched so tight the muscle twitched in his cheek. Evelyn's napkin was shredded now, tiny white fragments scattered across her lap like snow. Outside, the morning sun shone brightly, unaware of the heavy tension mounting inside the diner. Cars passed quietly along Main Street, their drivers unaware of the tension unfolding behind the diner's glass walls. Above, the ceiling fans rotated lazily, stirring the heavy air but offering no relief from the thickening atmosphere. Evelyn's fingers clenched a fresh napkin from the dispenser, her knuckles turning white. Her pulse thundered in her throat as Deputy Royce straightened, adjusting his belt with deliberate slowness. What had started as a hopeful morning now felt like a trap tightening around them. Theft? Royce's voice cut sharply through the diner's silence. Mr. Carter, we have multiple witnesses who say they saw someone matching your description near where that wallet went missing. His words echoed through the restaurant, loud enough for every patron to hear. Several diners shifted uneasily. A teenage girl in a corner booth raised her phone, its camera catching the morning light. Two more phones discreetly came out from other tables, steady and recording. That's absurd, Samuel said firmly, but calm. We've been here the whole time. Check with Linda. We arrived less than 30 minutes ago. Royce's lip curled. Oh, we'll check. Now, empty your pockets, Mr. Carter. Nice and slow. Samuel gripped the table edge tightly. Evelyn saw the slight tremor in his fingers, the glint of his wedding band catching the light as his knuckles whitened. Decades of dignity blended with years of caution in his steady expression. I will not, Samuel said, every word clear and measured. I have done nothing wrong, and you have no right. No right? Henderson stepped forward. Resisting a police officer now, are we? The phones kept rolling. Some customers stared down at their plates, shoulders tense. Others watched openly, like witnesses to a slow-motion disaster. The ceiling fans continued their dull whirl, stirring the suffocating air. Samuel pushed back his chair and stood, his tall frame impressive even at 79. I'm not resisting. I'm asserting my rights as a citizen. You have no probable cause. Sit down. Order of the deputy, Royce barked, hand moving toward his belt. Don't you dare touch him. Evelyn's voice trembled as she rose beside her husband. Shredded napkin pieces fluttered down like confetti. Suddenly, Henderson shoved the table hard. Coffee cups rattled, the vase of daisies toppled, water spilling across the formica. Evelyn stumbled back, her hip catching a neighboring table's edge. Arms flailing, she fought to regain balance. Her head didn't hit the floor. Samuel lunged, catching her, but her knee slammed hard on the tile, forcing a sharp gasp. Linda's shoes appeared in her vision as the diner owner rushed forward. Enough! Linda's voice cracked like a whip. Deputy Royce, Officer Henderson, step back right now. Silence fell like a weight. Phones lowered hesitantly, their owners unsure whether to keep recording. Samuel held Evelyn protectively, arms trembling with emotion barely contained. Linda helped Evelyn upright, her touch gentle but her voice resolute. These people are my customers. They're celebrating their anniversary. I will not allow them to be harassed in my diner. Royce started to protest, but Linda cut him off. Number. If you want to talk witnesses, I'm one. The Carters have been here the entire time, as you know, and we have security cameras that will prove it. She pointed to the black dome in the ceiling corner. "So unless you have a warrant or probable cause, I suggest you leave." Henderson's face darkened, but Royce placed a hand on his partner's arm. Behind his mirrored sunglasses, now replaced during the confrontation, his expression was unreadable. "We'll be back," he said quietly, loud enough for the Carters to hear. Linda stood firm, arms crossed, as the officers left. The doorbell jingled, its cheerful tone oddly out of place in the heavy air. Evelyn watched through the window as they climbed into their patrol car, but they didn't leave immediately. "Here, honey, sit down," Linda said, guiding Evelyn back to the now spotless booth. "Let me get you fresh coffee and some ice for that knee." Evelyn's hands trembled uncontrollably. She looked down at the scattered flower petals and wet napkins, the remnants of chaos on their anniversary table. Samuel stood close, his face a mix of guilt and concern. "Evelyn," he said softly, extending his hand. "I never wanted today to turn out like this." She took his hand, allowing him to help her settle back into the booth, words failing her. Outside, the morning sun still streamed through the windows, but its warmth felt gone. Around them, the diner's usual quiet chatter slowly resumed, muted and careful. Phones slipped back into pockets and purses, their footage saved for later. Linda returned with fresh coffee and a makeshift ice pack wrapped in a towel. "Put this on your knee, Evelyn, and don't worry about the bill today. This breakfast is on the house." Evelyn pressed the ice pack against her aching knee, watching as Linda moved quietly through the diner, offering fresh coffee and soft words to calm the unsettled crowd. Samuel sat beside her now, no longer across the table, his presence steady and familiar, but between them hung a heavy silence filled with unspoken feelings. Linda placed a warm slice of apple pie between them, the scent of cinnamon rising with the steam. 2 forks gleamed against white napkins, a peace offering in silverware. "Your favorite, Evelyn," Linda said gently, resting her hand briefly on Evelyn's shoulder. "I'm so sorry about what happened. This isn't right, and it's certainly not how your anniversary should be." The ice pack numbed Evelyn's knee, but a colder ache settled deep in her chest. Around them, the other diners pretended normalcy, forks scraping plates, coffee cups clinking, conversations murmured with care, but glances kept flickering toward the Carters' booth, then quickly away. Samuel picked up a fork, trying to lighten the mood. "Well, at least we get dessert before lunch. Remember our first date? We had pie for dinner because that's all I could afford." The memory usually brought a smile to Evelyn's face, but today she stared at the steam curling from the pie. "That was different," she whispered. "We were young then. We knew the risks, but we took them anyway." "The risks haven't changed," Samuel replied, his cheer fading. "Neither has the need to face them. Look what facing them got us today." Evelyn's voice trembled. "Your pride could have gotten you arrested, or worse." Samuel set down his fork softly. "My pride? Is that what you call standing up against being treated like a criminal in public? I call it risking everything when I could have just what?" His whisper was fierce. "Just let them humiliate us, empty my pockets like a thief, bow and scrape and say, 'Yes, sir,' while they spin their lies." Linda returned, coffee pot in hand, halting their argument. As she topped off their cups, her eyes flicked to the window. "They're still out there," she murmured, making calls. "I don't like it." Through the glass, they saw Royce in his patrol car, phone to ear, gesturing sharply. Henderson stood rigid beside the driver's door, barely containing his anger. Evelyn gripped her coffee cup tighter. "See? They're not done. They're just getting started." She turned to Samuel, voice pleading. "Please, Samuel. We can file a complaint later, talk to the sheriff tomorrow. But now, we need to leave before this gets worse." "Running away won't solve anything," Samuel said quietly. "That's exactly what they want. Us scared, staying in our place. I'm not talking about running away. I'm talking about being smart, being alive." Evelyn's voice cracked. "What good is standing up to them if it means I have to visit you in the hospital? Or worse?" Linda moved through the tables, wiping surfaces, but staying close to their booth. Customers were starting to leave, dropping cash and avoiding eye contact with the police car outside. 47 years we've been married, Samuel said, low and intense. 54 years in this town. I delivered mail to half these houses, children, grandchildren, and all it takes is one accusation, one corrupt deputy, and suddenly I'm a criminal. Of course it's not right, Evelyn said softly, but getting hurt won't make it better. Remember what happened to James back in '65? All he did was stand up for himself. Suddenly, the diner door crashed open, the bell jangling violently. Roy strode in, face flushed with anger, Henderson close behind. Remaining customers froze, forks paused midair, coffee cups suspended. "Samuel Carter," Royce announced, voice echoing through the room. "You're under arrest for assaulting an officer and resisting arrest." "What?" Linda stepped forward. "That's ridiculous. He never—" "Stay out of this, Linda," Henderson warned. "This is official police business now." Royce reached the booth in 3 long strides. His hand clamped onto Samuel's arm, yanking him roughly to his feet. "On your feet, old man. You want to act tough? Let's see how tough you are down at the station. Get your hands off him." Evelyn tried to stand, but her injured knee buckled. Linda caught her before she fell. Samuel didn't resist, but neither did he comply easily, his body rigid with dignity as Royce pulled him toward the door. The remaining diners watched in horrified silence, phones once again raised to record the scene. The bell above the door chimed one last time. A broad-shouldered shadow filled the doorway, tall, radiating controlled power. Marcus Carter stood perfectly still, eyes sharp and calculating as he took in the scene. His father hauled away, his mother distressed, the remnants of their anniversary celebration scattered around. The temperature in the diner seemed to drop 10 degrees. Even Royce's grip on Samuel faltered as he registered the newcomer's presence. Marcus's eyes, cold and sharp as steel, locked onto Royce's face. The morning sun backlit him, casting his expression partly in shadow, but the deadly calm in his voice was unmistakable. Marcus filled the doorway like a statue carved from granite, his military bearing clear in his squared shoulders and perfect stillness. The sunlight caught the edges of his cropped hair, creating a halo effect that made him seem even more imposing. His eyes swept the diner with practiced precision, catching the phone's recording, the frightened customers, Linda's protective stance near his mother, and finally, Royce's hold on his father's arm. "Marcus?" Evelyn's voice cracked, part relief, part fear. "Baby, be careful!" Samuel twisted in Royce's grasp, struggling to break free. "Son, don't," Royce snapped, tightening his grip until Samuel winced. "This is a police matter. Who the hell are you?" Royce demanded. Marcus took 3 measured steps forward, his movements controlled and silent on the linoleum floor. "I'm their son," he said evenly, "and you're hurting my father." The confidence in his voice flushed Royce's face darker. "Back off, boy. Your daddy's under arrest for assaulting an officer." "That's a lie," Linda called out from behind the counter. "Everyone here saw what really happened." Marcus's gaze never left Royce, but his voice carried through the diner. "Keep recording, everyone. Get every second of this." Henderson's hand drifted toward his taser. "Last warning. Back away or—" In a heartbeat, Marcus closed the distance. His hands moved with practiced precision, one gripping Royce's wrist, applying pressure to nerve points, the other twisting his elbow. Using Royce's own momentum and poor balance against him, Marcus executed a smooth, controlled move. There was no struggle, no violence, just the fluid grace of perfect technique. Royce's grip on Samuel broke. The deputy stumbled, spun, and found himself pressed against the counter, arm bent behind him at an awkward but harmless angle. "Don't," Marcus said quietly as Henderson fumbled with his taser. "You really don't want to escalate this." Samuel steadied himself, rubbing his arm where Royce had dug in. Evelyn reached for him, and he moved to her side, shielded by their son's broad frame. Henderson's taser wavered, uncertainty plain on his face. The weapon looked almost toy-like compared to Marcus's solid presence. "This is interference with police business," Henderson warned. "No," Marcus replied. voice calm but commanding. "This is me protecting my parents from harassment and false arrest." He released Royce with a slight push and positioned himself between the officers and his family. Every person in the diner witnessed the truth. Every phone captured it. The silence was complete. Coffee machines stopped dripping. The ceiling fan's soft whoosh sounded thunderous. Even traffic outside faded as if the world was holding its breath. Royce straightened his uniform, trying to salvage his dignity. His face drained of color, anger mixing with the realization he'd lost control. "You just assaulted a police officer," he accused. "No," Marcus cut in, voice level but edged with steel. "I used minimum necessary force to prevent the unlawful detention of an innocent citizen. Want me to demonstrate the difference?" His stance shifted slightly, not aggressive, but radiating the grace of a trained fighter. "I can cite laws on civilian intervention in cases of police misconduct, or we can discuss department policy on racial profiling and false arrests." Linda stood near the register, phone raised, recording. Other customers formed a loose circle, their phones raised like shields. The morning sun cast long shadows across the floor, dramatic lines highlighting the tension in the air. Henderson's taser lowered, confidence visibly cracking. "Roy, maybe we should shut up," he muttered. Royce hissed, but looked diminished, his usual swagger gone. Marcus took a step forward, voice dropping to a quiet command that echoed across the diner. "Step away from my parents now." The words hung like thunder before lightning. Every phone captured the moment. Marcus standing tall and certain, his parents behind him, officers facing a choice between pride and wisdom. The sunlight painted stark contrasts, light and shadow, truth and deception, right and wrong. Royce's hand trembled as he reached for his radio. "Dispatch, this is Deputy Royce. We need immediate backup at Linda's Diner on Main. Multiple hostile subjects, one with military training." Marcus knelt beside his mother, his movements calm and precise. "Let me see your knee, Mama." He gently rolled up her pant leg to reveal a nasty scrape from her fall earlier. From his pocket, he pulled out a compact first aid kit, the kind soldiers carry. "Always prepared, aren't you, baby?" Evelyn managed a weak smile. Marcus worked efficiently, cleaning the wound with an antiseptic wipe. "This might sting a bit." Henderson paced nervously, taser holstered but hand hovering near it. "You can't just tell everyone to film," Henderson called out. Marcus cut him off without missing a beat, applying antibiotic cream. "Make sure the videos are clear. If your batteries run low, there are outlets along the walls. This will all matter later." The patrons responded immediately. Those already filming shifted for better angles. Others nervously pulled out phones they'd hidden before. The quiet clicks and beeps of recording devices filled the tense air. "You're all interfering with police business," Royce snarled, though his voice lacked conviction. Linda stepped forward, phone steady in hand. "The only business I see is harassment of paying customers celebrating their anniversary." Marcus finished bandaging Evelyn's knee with practiced skill. "How's that feel, Mama?" "Better," she whispered, though her hands still trembled. Samuel stood protectively nearby. "Son, more officers are coming. Maybe we should—" "We're not going anywhere," Marcus said firmly, standing tall. "We've done nothing wrong." He turned to the diners. "Make sure to get clear shots of any officers who come in, badge numbers especially." The sound of sirens grew louder. Red and blue lights flashed through the windows, painting the diner's interior in urgent colors. 3 more patrol cars pulled up. "Last chance," Royce said, straightening his uniform. "On your knees, hands behind your head." Marcus's reply was cut short as 4 more officers stormed through the door, hands on weapons. "Down! Everyone down!" the lead officer shouted. "Sir," Marcus responded calmly, voice carrying the authority of a Marine. "Lower your voice. You're frightening civilians, and there are children here." He gestured toward a mother shielding her young son. 2 officers moved to flank Marcus. He tracked their movements without turning, shifting his stance to maintain awareness. "He assaulted Deputy Royce," Henderson shouted. An officer lunged for Marcus's arm. What followed was almost too fast to see. Marcus used the officer's momentum to throw him over his hip. The man landed hard on his back. Before anyone reacted, Marcus reset his stance, hands open and visible. That was a standard defensive throw, Marcus announced for the recording phones. No strikes, no excessive force. I will continue to defend myself and my parents from unlawful assault. Another officer rushed from behind. Marcus dropped his shoulder, caught the man's arm, and executed a perfect arm drag. The officer stumbled off balance. A third tried to tackle him low. Marcus sprawled like a wrestler, spreading his weight to stay upright and keep himself between the officers and his parents. "Stop!" Linda's voice cut through the chaos. "This is ridiculous. They were just having breakfast." The officers hesitated, clearly unprepared for someone neutralizing their attacks without injury. Phones recorded every angle, capturing each move and reaction. Marcus took the moment to address the officers calmly. "I'm a Marine Corps veteran trained in non-lethal combat techniques. I've defended myself using minimum necessary force against unlawful assault. Everyone here witnessed Deputy Royce's harassment of my parents and his attempt at false arrest." The officers exchanged uncertain glances. The ones Marcus threw were slowly getting up, more embarrassed than hurt. Linda moved carefully to Evelyn's side, whispering, "I called Jasmine, Officer Lee. She's new, but she's good people. She'll help make this right." Evelyn squeezed Linda's hand, tears in her eyes. "Thank you, friend." Samuel stood taller, dignity returning as he watched his son hold control. Sunlight streamed through the windows, highlighting the absurdity of 6 officers facing one man protecting his elderly parents in a small-town diner. Marcus remained calm, balanced, and ready. His voice rang clear to every recording phone in the diner. "Now, who wants to explain why multiple officers are trying to assault a veteran and his parents during a peaceful breakfast?" The diner's tension shifted into an uneasy standoff. While Marcus kept the officers at bay near the counter, Linda quietly led Evelyn and Samuel to a secluded booth, tucked behind an old jukebox. Long shadows from the morning sun striped their faces as they sat in tense silence. "You always do this," Evelyn whispered, clutching her coffee cup tight. "Every single time, Samuel. You have to stand up, to fight back." Samuel's jaw tightened. "And what do you want me to do? Bow my head? Say yes, sir? No, sir, like it's still 1960? I would have you keep us safe." Evelyn's voice cracked. "Every time you push back, I hold my breath, waiting for the worst to happen." "The worst?" Samuel leaned in, voice low and intense. "The worst already happened, Evelyn. When they turned our own people against us, when they made our friends believe I was a traitor, an informant." Evelyn's eyes glistened. "Maybe if you hadn't been so confrontational back then." "Don't." Samuel slammed his hand on the table, rattling the silverware. "Don't you dare suggest I brought that on myself." "I'm not suggesting," Evelyn said, eyes downcast. "I just sometimes wonder if there wasn't some truth." "Mama." Marcus's voice cut through the argument as he slid quietly into the booth beside his father, his military training clear in his stealthy approach. "What are you saying?" Evelyn, startled, guilt washing over her face. "Marcus, I never doubted Dad all this time." Marcus's expression was a mixture of shock and disappointment after all his father had sacrificed. Samuel sat rigid, the hurt evident. "Your mother's entitled to her doubts. Half the town had them for 40 years. "Tell me everything," Marcus demanded quietly. "The real story." Evelyn dabbed her eyes with a napkin. "It was during the lunch counter protests. Your father was one of the organizers. The police got violent, and suddenly they knew every move we made. Because someone was feeding them information," Samuel added bitterly. "Sheriff Wilson's daddy made sure everyone thought it was me." "But why would anyone believe that?" Marcus asked. "Because I worked at the post office," Samuel explained, "had access to mail, communications, and because I argued with Reverend Jackson about keeping the protests peaceful when others wanted direct action." "And you never cleared your name?" "How could I? Wilson's daddy made sure the evidence pointed at me. I lost my place in the movement, friends I'd had since childhood, even my job." Evelyn reached for Samuel's hand, but he pulled away. "I wanted to believe you," she whispered, "but you never fought the accusations. just got quiet and proud and distant, because my own wife didn't stand with me. The words burst from Samuel like they'd been trapped for 40 years. You think I didn't see the doubt in your eyes? How you'd flinch when people whispered? How you'd make excuses to skip meetings? I was scared, Evelyn said, voice rising before she stopped herself. Scared of violence, of losing you to prison or worse. And yes, scared maybe you weren't telling me everything. Marcus sat silently, absorbing the pain spilling from decades of silence. The weight of their history pressed down like a physical force on their small booth. I'm tired, Samuel said finally, voice rough. Tired of retreating. Tired of letting lies define me. Tired of my own wife carrying that doubt. Samuel, Evelyn pleaded softly. He straightened. That's why I won't back down anymore. Not to these officers, not to anyone. 40 years of silence got me nowhere. Now I stand. Before anyone could answer, heavy footsteps approached. A flushed officer appeared, voice loud enough for the diner to hear. Well, well, looks like we just found something interesting in your car, Mr. Carter. Care to explain the drugs in your trunk? The accusation hung bitter and choking in the air. Samuel clenched his fists. Evelyn's face went pale. Marcus's eyes scanned the diner, calm but alert. Silence fell, all eyes fixed on their booth. The morning sun striped their faces through the blinds, highlighting Evelyn's fear, Samuel's burning anger, and Marcus's dangerous stillness. Deputy Royce swaggered back into view, holding up a clear plastic evidence bag filled with what looked like white powder. His smirk grew wider as he dangled it tauntingly before the Carters. Amazing what you find when you know where to look, Royce sneered, voice dripping with fake concern. Who would have thought such upstanding citizens would be carrying narcotics? Samuel's face darkened with fury. You planted that. We both know it now. Royce clicked his tongue, signaling two officers. Let's not add resisting arrest to the charges. Cuff them. Marcus's hand slipped casually into his jacket pocket, pressing a button on his phone. The recording app activated silently as his eyes locked on Royce. The other diners watched in horror as officers roughly pulled Samuel and Evelyn from their seats. The metal cuffs clicked shut around their wrists, too tight, causing Evelyn to wince in pain. Please, she whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. We've never had drugs. Never. The bell above the door chimed again as the police captain strode in, filling the small diner with his imposing presence. A big man with cold eyes and an artificial smile that never reached them. Well done, deputy, the captain said, examining the evidence bag. Looks like at least 50 grams. That's trafficking, not just possession. Marcus kept his phone angled subtly, capturing every word. Mr. Carter, the captain continued, your reputation for causing trouble has finally caught up with you. First betraying your own people back in the day, and now this. Samuel struggled against his cuffs. You're no better than Wilson's father. Same corrupt blood running through this department. Evelyn sobbed quietly, shoulders shaking. Samuel, please, just stop. You're making it worse. Her voice cracked with despair. Maybe if you'd just stayed quiet all those years. Maybe if you'd just let it be. The hurt in Samuel's eyes cut deep as he looked at his wife. Even now, when they're framing us right in front of you, you still think surrender is the answer. The captain interrupted their painful exchange, reaching for Marcus. But Junior here needs cuffs too. Marcus allowed himself to be handcuffed, keeping his movements subtle as he shifted his phone to continue recording. His eyes scanned the diner, exit routes, obstacles, distractions. His Marine training mapped escape plans instantly. The captain loomed over Marcus. Not so tough now, are you? Soldier boy should have stayed overseas where you belong. Sir, a younger officer called from the door. Media's starting to show up outside. The captain's face tightened. Get them out the back, now. As officers began pushing them toward the kitchen, Marcus caught sight of the ancient fire alarm on the wall. Its wiring looked original, probably from the 1960s. His mind raced through electrical training from his combat engineering courses. Passing close to the wall, Marcus stumbled slightly. His shoulder brushed the alarm's housing. In one fluid motion, his fingers found the exposed wire he'd spotted and twisted it just enough. The effect was immediate. The alarm shrieked to life, its ancient bell clanging deafeningly. The sprinkler system sputtered and sprayed, sending customers scrambling. Steam hissed from the grill as water hit hot metal. In the chaos, Marcus moved with practiced precision. His hands, loose in the poorly applied cuffs, slipped free. He spun toward his parents, fingers finding the pressure points on their cuffs' locking mechanisms. "When I say run," he whispered in their ears, "head for the kitchen door. Don't stop." The captain shouted orders, struggling to control the panic. Royce turned his back, shielding the evidence bag from the water. Officers were distracted by fleeing customers. Marcus's muscles tensed, ready to move. Steam thickened, mixing with sprinkler spray. Water dripped down their faces as they waited for his signal. The diner was chaos, exactly what Marcus needed. People pushed past officers, shouts and alarms mixing in a deafening roar. The captain's authority drowned in confusion. Through it all, Marcus's phone recorded every moment of the false arrest and officers' panic as their setup unraveled. Evelyn's tears mixed with sprinkler water on her face. But now there was something else, a spark of the fire that had drawn her to Samuel all those years ago. She squeezed her husband's hand, a silent apology for doubting, a promise to stand with him now. Samuel stood tall despite his years, dignity unbroken by false charges or the soaked anniversary suit. His eyes met Marcus's, ready to follow his lead. The alarm's piercing cry continued as steam and chaos filled the air. Marcus tensed, waiting for the perfect moment to act. His military instincts tracked every officer's position amid the confusion. Guiding his parents through the steamy kitchen, pots clattered behind them, creating obstacles for pursuers. His combat-trained eyes spotted the dim red exit sign through the chaos. "Stay close," he whispered, gripping his mother's elbow while his father held her other arm. "Quick and quiet, just like I showed you." They burst into the alley, the heavy door clicking shut behind them. The afternoon sun cast long shadows between the buildings. Marcus pressed his parents against a brick wall, listening intently. Shouts echoed from inside, but the back door stayed closed. "This way," Marcus directed, leading them behind a dumpster as a police cruiser's siren wailed past the alley entrance. His mother gasped sharply. "I can't!" Evelyn stumbled, legs shaking. Samuel caught her just in time. "I've got you, love. Just a little further." Marcus scanned their surroundings, mentally mapping an escape route through the maze of downtown alleys. His training kicked in, identifying cover, noting sight lines, tracking threats. He'd done this in combat zones, but never while protecting his elderly parents. They moved cautiously between buildings, Marcus choosing paths hidden from the main streets. Every few steps, he paused them behind doorways or parked cars, watching for patrol vehicles. His father's face showed determination, but Evelyn's eyes darted nervously at every sound. "Down!" Marcus hissed suddenly, pulling them behind a stack of wooden pallets. A police car crawled past the alley's far end, spotlight sweeping the shadows. Evelyn buried her face in Samuel's chest, muffling a sob. When the coast cleared, they pressed on. Marcus led them through a narrow passage between two restaurants, the smell of cooking grease heavy in the air. His boots made no sound, a skill honed in far deadlier situations. His parents tried to move quietly, but their dress shoes clicked softly. "Stop right there!" a woman's voice commanded from behind. Marcus spun, placing himself between the voice and his parents. Officer Jasmine Lee stood at the alley's entrance, hand raised in peace. "I'm here to help," she said softly. "Linda sent me. There's a safe place nearby." Marcus didn't lower his guard. "Why should we trust you?" "Because I've been gathering evidence against Royce and the captain for months," Jasmine replied, "and because I know what really happened to your father in '65. Samuel stiffened. "What do you mean?" "Not here." Jasmine glanced over her shoulder. "Linda's house is 2 blocks away. I can get you there unseen." Marcus studied her face, years of combat experience helping him read her intentions. No deception, only urgency and genuine concern. "Marcus," Evelyn whispered, "I remember her." She helped old Mrs. Johnson when those boys were harassing her store. After a moment, Marcus nodded. Lead the way, officer, but no sudden moves. Jasmine guided them through service alleys and behind small businesses, moving with the confidence of someone who knew every corner. When sirens approached, she quickly steered them into an abandoned storage room. Finally, they reached Linda's modest two-story home through the back garden. The diner owner ushered them inside, quickly closing curtains. Upstairs bedroom's ready, Linda said. No one will look for you here. Once inside, Jasmine pulled out her phone. You need to see this. She showed videos and documents, evidence of systematic harassment, planted evidence, falsified reports. They've been doing this for years, but today they got sloppy because they were angry. Samuel sank heavily onto the bed, shoulders slumping like his father's had to him. Same playbook, different decade. Evelyn sat beside him, taking his hand. Samuel, I'm so sorry. All these years I was too afraid of you making waves, drawing attention. I let that fear make me doubt you. Samuel's voice was rough with emotion. I was too proud, too determined to fight every battle, even when it hurt you, even when it made you feel unsafe. Tears rolled down Evelyn's cheeks. When they accused you of being an informant, I should have stood by you completely. Instead, I let my fear create doubt. Can you forgive me? Samuel gathered her close, eyes wet. There's nothing to forgive, my love. Fear is what they want. It's how they keep us quiet, keep us divided, even me from my own wife's trust. Marcus watched his parents reconcile, throat tight. Jasmine touched his arm gently. I can't take them down alone, she said softly. I need someone with your skills, someone who knows how to plan. Will you help me expose them? Marcus's jaw set as he watched his parents hold each other, decades of pain finally breaking open. Tell me what you need. Linda's attic smelled of old paper and dust. Cardboard boxes lined the walls, filled with decades of memories and records. Marcus helped his mother settle into an old armchair while Jasmine spread files across a worn table. My husband, Tom, kept everything, Linda explained, pulling out folders. He believed documentation was the best weapon against corruption. Truth surfaces, even years later. Afternoon sun filtered through a small window, casting long shadows across yellowed newspaper clippings and faded police reports. Samuel stood behind Evelyn's chair, hand resting on her shoulder as they watched Jasmine sort papers. Here, Jasmine said, opening a brittle folder. Police logs from 1965, the week of the protests. She laid out handwritten pages, the ink faded but legible. Marcus leaned in, scanning the entries with practiced eyes. Look at these discrepancies. Times don't match up. He pointed to several entries. These officers reported being at the protest site, but other logs placed them across town. That's right, Linda nodded, pulling out a small notebook. Tom kept his own records of where officers actually were that day. She indicated several names. These men were seen at the sheriff's house the night before, not out on patrol like they claimed, Samuel said, his fingers tightening on Evelyn's shoulder. The sheriff's son, now the captain, he was there too. I remember seeing him talking to those officers before everything went wrong. Evelyn reached up, covering Samuel's hand with hers. Tell them, Samuel. Tell them what really happened that day. Samuel's voice was rough with memory. We were planning a peaceful march to the courthouse. Nothing illegal, just exercising our rights. But someone told the sheriff we planned violence. He paused, swallowing hard. They said I was the one who told them. But you weren't, Jasmine interrupted, holding up a yellowed memo. According to this, the sheriff's office had their response planned days before any supposed tip came in. They intended to plant the informant story no matter what. Marcus pulled out his phone, photographing each document. They needed someone respected in the community to take the fall, and it worked. Evelyn spoke softly. People who knew Samuel all their lives started looking at him differently, started wondering. Linda opened another box, this one full of photographs. Tom took these during the protests. He tried to document everything, but they confiscated most of his film. She spread black and white images across the table. Crowds of protesters, police lines, and crucially, the sheriff's son talking to officers in an alley, pointing to Samuel in the distance. "They set you up," Marcus growled, his military training clear in his controlled anger. "They manufactured the whole thing." Jasmine nodded, adding newer documents to the pile. "And they've been using the same tactics ever since, planting evidence, creating suspicion, dividing the community. The current captain learned from his father." Evelyn stood slowly, trembling as she touched one of the photos. "All these years I was so afraid." She turned to Samuel, tears in her eyes. "I let that fear make me doubt you sometimes. Made me wish you'd just stay quiet. Keep your head down." Samuel cupped her face gently. "And I was so angry about being falsely accused. I didn't see how my need to fight back frightened you. I just kept pushing, trying to prove myself." "You had nothing to prove," Evelyn whispered. "I should have trusted you completely. Should have stood with you instead of letting fear make me hesitate." "We both let them win a little," Samuel said, pulling her close. "Let them put distance between us with doubt and fear, but no more." Linda wiped her eyes, smiling at the couple's reconciliation. Tom would be so happy to see his records finally bring out the truth. Jasmine gathered the most damning documents, organizing them carefully. "This is enough to start an investigation, but we need to catch them in the act, show everyone exactly how they operate." Marcus's tactical mind was already working. The diner would be perfect. It's public, with lots of witnesses, phones, security cameras. He turned to Linda. "Would you be willing to help us set a trap?" Linda's eyes sparkled with determination. "Tom and I bought this diner to create a place where everyone's welcome, where right is right and wrong is wrong. You bet. I'll help." "It's risky," Jasmine warned. "The captain won't go down without a fight." "We're done hiding," Samuel declared, arm around Evelyn. "Done letting them make us doubt each other and ourselves." Evelyn straightened, years of fear falling away as she looked at her husband with clear, trusting eyes. "No more fear between us." Marcus and Jasmine exchanged determined looks. "Then let's plan carefully," Marcus said. "We'll need perfect timing, multiple angles, and a way to protect everyone involved." They gathered around the table. Linda's late husband's records lay before them like a map to long-buried truths, ready to write a new chapter of justice in their town's history. The first hint of dawn painted the sky soft pink and purple as Linda's key turned in the diner's front door. The bell chimed softly as she pushed it open, her hand steady despite the tension in her shoulders. Marcus entered first, scanning the dim interior with military precision before nodding to the others. Evelyn and Samuel followed, fingers intertwined, walking taller than they had in days. Jasmine brought up the rear, carrying a black equipment bag containing everything they'd need to expose decades of corruption. "Main lights stay off for now," Marcus instructed, moving with quiet efficiency. "We don't want to draw attention too early." He pulled the blinds halfway, letting in just enough morning light. Linda moved behind the counter, starting a pot of coffee. The familiar routine steadied her nerves. "I called everyone last night," Jasmine said, laying out recording devices and wireless mics. "They'll be here by 6. Samuel watched her, expression steady. "Who exactly is coming?" "Reverend Thompson," Linda replied, carefully measuring coffee grounds. "Dr. Williams from the medical center, Judge Martinez, and a few others who have been in this town long enough to remember 65. She paused, looking at Samuel. "People who should have spoken up back then." Evelyn squeezed Samuel's hand. "People who need to hear the truth." Marcus moved strategically, positioning chairs and tables to create clear sightlines to every exit. His movements were precise and tactical. "When everyone's in place, I want the elders seated here," he said, indicating a central protected area with a clear view of everything. The coffee maker gurgled to life, filling the space with its rich aroma as Linda brought out fresh pastries. "They'll need their strength. This won't be easy for anyone." Jasmine tested each microphone methodically, her police training clear. Handing one to Linda, she said, "This one goes under your collar. We need them to incriminate themselves clearly. Morning light grew stronger as they worked. Marcus helped Jasmine install cameras in strategic spots and taught the elders how to activate them remotely with their phones. Samuel and Evelyn spread documents across tables, old records mixed with new evidence, telling a 40-year story of corruption and lies. By 5:45, the first guests arrived. Reverend Thompson entered first, his aged face solemn as he embraced Samuel and Evelyn. Dr. Williams followed, carrying his medical bag. "Just in case," he said quietly. Judge Martinez arrived with her clerk, both carrying legal notepads. Before they began, Marcus addressed the group with a low but commanding voice. "Everyone needs to understand the risks. These men are armed and dangerous. If violence erupts, move to the kitchen. Linda's shown me the back exit. Your safety comes first." Jasmine stepped forward, adjusting her concealed wire. "We have backup on standby, but they won't move in unless I give the signal. We need to let this play out naturally." The elders nodded, faces mixed with determination and old guilt. Judge Martinez spoke up. "It's time we made this right. We all failed you, Samuel. Fear and doubt poisoned our community." Linda served coffee as Marcus continued the security briefing. "Keep your phones recording, but don't make it obvious. If they draw weapons, hit the floor. I can handle them, but I need everyone clear of the line of fire." Sunlight filled the diner now, casting long shadows across worn linoleum. Samuel stood by the counter, hand resting on a stack of evidence. "All these years," he said softly, "I hoped the truth would come out on its own." "Sometimes truth needs a little help," Evelyn replied, straightening his collar with steady hands. Their eyes met, decades of pain and love passing silently between them. At 6:15, distant police sirens sounded. Marcus moved to his post near the front door, stance relaxed but ready. Jasmine checked her wire one last time and nodded to Linda, who took her place behind the counter. The sirens grew louder, then suddenly stopped. Heavy footsteps approached. Through the half-drawn blinds, they saw Royce and Henderson, hands on their weapons. Behind them, the police captain strode in with the confident gait of a man used to getting his way. The bell chimed harshly as they burst inside. Royce's face twisted with anger. Henderson's hand rested on his holstered gun, while the captain surveyed the room coldly. "Where are they?" Royce demanded, his voice echoing. "We know you're hiding the Carters. This little game ends now." The captain stepped forward, badge catching the light. "Anyone harboring fugitives will face charges. This is your last chance to turn them over." The elders remained seated, phones discreetly recording. 3 corrupt officers stood armed and angry in the doorway, demanding justice while preparing to pervert it once again. The morning sun streamed through the windows as Jasmine stepped forward, shoulders squared, the weight of her badge heavy on her chest. Her voice rang clear. "Before you make any more threats," she said, holding up a small digital recorder, "you should hear this." She pressed play. Deputy Royce's harsh, unfiltered voice filled the diner. "Plant the drugs in their car. Make it look clean." The captain's face darkened. "Turn that off immediately." "No, sir, I won't." Jasmine's finger increased the volume. Henderson's nervous laughter crackled through the speaker, followed by more damning conversations. "I have hours of this. Every threat, every scheme, every lie." Linda moved between tables, distributing manila folders to the seated elders. "These are copies of all the evidence," she announced. "Police logs from 1965, doctored reports, buried witness statements." Samuel stood, dignity radiating through the room. "You're going to hear the truth now, all of it." Reverend Thompson opened his folder, hands trembling. "Dear Lord," he whispered, scanning the documents. "Samuel, they framed you. The sheriff's father, he planned it all." Judge Martinez lifted a yellowed police report. "This is my father's signature. He tried to report the corruption, but they buried his complaint." Her voice cracked. "They transferred him out of state a week later." Royce's face flushed red. "This is all lies!" He lunged forward, reaching for the papers, but Marcus intercepted smoothly. "Don't," Marcus warned, stance relaxed but ready. Jasmine played another recording, the captain's voice discussing how to maintain order in their town. The elders' shock turned to anger as decades of manipulation became clear. Henderson edged toward the door, but Dr. Williams stood firm. Running won't help you now, son. Face what you've done. The captain's hand moved toward his weapon. Officer Lee, you're suspended effective immediately. This is unauthorized. Actually, sir, Jasmine cut in, this is an official investigation. State police are already en route. She held up her phone, showing an active call. They've been listening since we started. Royce suddenly charged, trying to grab Samuel. You're still under arrest, old man. But Marcus was faster. In one fluid move, he caught Royce's arm, twisted it, and slammed him face first into the counter. A precise, controlled maneuver straight out of Marine Corps training. Stay down, Marcus ordered, securing Royce's arms behind his back. Henderson drew his taser, hands shaking. Let him go now, Jasmine commanded, weapon still holstered. Think about what you're doing. The elders rose, forming a protective circle around the Carters. Judge Martinez's voice carried legal authority. Every person here is a witness to both history and justice. Linda stepped from behind the counter. We all saw you harass them, plant evidence, abuse your power. More townspeople pushed through the door, phones raised and recording. Henderson's taser lowered as he looked around at faces he'd grown up with, faces now knowing the truth. But the captain wasn't finished. In one swift motion, he drew his weapon and grabbed Jasmine, pressing the barrel against her ribs. Drop the evidence, all of it. His eyes locked onto Marcus. On your knees, Marine, or I start with her and move on to your parents. The room froze. Marcus's muscles tensed, calculating risks and angles. Royce lay restrained on the floor. Henderson stood paralyzed. The morning sun cast long shadows across the worn linoleum. Last chance, the captain growled, tightening his grip on Jasmine. Surrender now or watch them die. The elders closed ranks around Samuel and Evelyn, forming a human shield. Dr. Williams moved his medical bag closer, grim-faced. Judge Martinez clutched evidence files to her chest, refusing to let go of the truth just uncovered. Time seemed to stop as the captain's finger tightened on the trigger, his desperation making him more dangerous by the second. Only the soft hum of the coffee maker and rapid breathing filled the deadly silence. Marcus kept his hands visible, his mind racing through every possible scenario. One wrong move could cost lives. The captain's eyes darted between Jasmine, the Carters, and the evidence that could destroy his corrupt empire. The morning sun caught his badge, once a symbol of protection, now a shield for decades of injustice. Marcus's eyes met Jasmine's for a fleeting moment. His right hand, hanging loose, made a subtle gesture, thumb and index finger forming a quick circle, then 3 fingers extending, a Marine Corps signal to create a diversion and attack in 3. Jasmine didn't hesitate. She suddenly went limp in the captain's grip, knees buckling and throwing him off balance. Please, she gasped dramatically. I can't breathe. The captain's attention split between his stumbling hostage and Marcus. That split second was all they needed. Marcus exploded into action. 2 long strides brought him close. His left hand shot up, deflecting the captain's gun arm while his right clamped down on the weapon. He twisted sharply, disarming with the same technique used in combat. The gun clattered to the floor as the captain howled in pain. Jasmine spun free, dropping and rolling away. Marcus stepped into the captain's space, using his momentum against him. A swift leg sweep and arm lock sent the corrupt officer crashing face first onto the diner floor. Marcus pressed his knee firmly into the captain's back, securing him with practiced efficiency. Someone grab his cuffs, Marcus called calmly, holding firm. Henderson made one last desperate move toward the door, but the townspeople were ready. Dr. Williams and 2 younger men quickly grabbed him, forcing him down into a chair. Linda moved behind the counter and swiftly wrapped his wrists with kitchen twine. It's over, Judge Martinez announced, already dialing the state police. The truth is out now. Royce lay still where Marcus had left him, the fight completely drained from his body. Jasmine retrieved her handcuffs and secured him properly, reciting his rights clearly and calmly. The diner door burst open as Sheriff Davis rushed in, summoned by multiple emergency calls. Taking in the scene, the captain subdued, deputies restrained, a room full of witnesses holding damning evidence, he paused. Sheriff, Judge Martinez stepped forward, handing him the files, her expression stern. Your department has some explaining to do." The sheriff's face grew grave as he flipped through the documents, his hands trembling slightly when he reached the papers about Samuel's frame-up. Looking up at the Carters, then back at his fallen officers, he declared formally, "Captain James Reynolds, you're under arrest for corruption, conspiracy, assault with a deadly weapon, and civil rights violations." He nodded to deputies who had followed him in. "Take them all into custody." As the officers were led away, the atmosphere shifted. Reverend Thompson approached Samuel and Evelyn, tears in his eyes. "We should have known better," he said softly. "Should have stood with you back then. Can you ever forgive us?" Other elders gathered around. Decades of misunderstanding began to clear. Mrs. Peterson, who'd lived next door to the Carters for 30 years, hugged Evelyn tightly. "We let fear and lies divide us," she whispered. "Never again." Dr. Williams shook Samuel's hand firmly. "You were always a man of honor," he declared. "We just forgot how to recognize it." Jasmine stepped forward, addressing the crowd. "This is just the beginning. We're going to rebuild this department from the ground up. No more corruption, no more prejudice. I give you my word." Linda moved gently through the group, offering tissues and comforting touches. The morning sun now filled the diner, warming the worn vinyl booths and gleaming off the chrome fixtures. The same light that had witnessed so much injustice now illuminating a path to healing. Marcus finally relaxed his combat-ready stance and stood beside his parents. Samuel's eyes glistened with unshed tears as neighbors approached one by one, offering apologies and embraces. Evelyn held Samuel's hand tightly, her other reaching for Marcus's arm, anchoring their family together. The state police arrived, collecting evidence and taking statements. Throughout, the Carters maintained their dignity, answering questions with the same grace they'd shown through years of suspicion and pain. Hours later, as the sun began to set, the diner emptied, except for a small group in the corner booth. Linda brought out fresh coffee and her famous peach cobbler, setting it before the Carters, Marcus, and Jasmine. The day's tension faded into exhausted relief. The quiet clink of spoons against dishes filled the peaceful silence. Through the windows, neighbors still gathered on the sidewalk, speaking in hushed voices, processing the day's revelations. The diner's neon sign flickered to life as dusk settled, casting a warm glow over their small gathering. Jasmine sat beside Marcus, both alert but finally allowing themselves to relax. Linda pulled up a chair at the table's end, her presence as comforting as ever. The five shared this moment of victory and vindication, each lost in thoughts of battles won and changes to come. The next morning dawned bright and clear over Main Street. Samuel and Evelyn Carter walked hand in hand along the familiar sidewalk, Marcus keeping pace beside them. The morning air felt different, lighter, clearer, as if truth had swept away decades of shadows. Mrs. Peterson waved warmly from her porch. "Beautiful morning, isn't it?" she called. The Carters waved back, shoulders relaxed, eyes free of weariness. "Sure is," Samuel replied, his voice strong and clear. They passed Thompson's Hardware, where old Mr. Thompson straightened from arranging his window display and offered a respectful nod. "Morning, Carters," he said, then added with meaning, "All of you." Marcus acknowledged the greeting with a slight smile, alert yet relaxed, his military bearing softened by the peace of the moment. His parents walked with newfound confidence, Samuel's steps measured and proud, Evelyn's grace untouched by yesterday's fear. Outside the courthouse, they spotted Sheriff Davis giving a press conference. Morning news crews had cameras trained on him as he detailed the arrests and charges. "Former Captain Reynolds faces multiple felony counts," the sheriff said, his voice carrying across the square. "Deputies Royce and Henderson have been terminated and are being charged with civil rights violations, assault, and conspiracy. The state police investigation has uncovered evidence of systematic discrimination spanning years." The Carters paused to listen, standing openly this time. Nearby townspeople offered supportive smiles and gentle touches to Evelyn's shoulder or Samuel's arm. "The department will undergo a complete review," the sheriff continued. Officer Jasmine Lee has been promoted to detective and will head our newly formed Internal Affairs Division. We are committed to earning back the community's trust. As if on cue, Jasmine emerged from the courthouse, now wearing detective's insignia. She spotted the Carters and hurried over, beaming. "Just finished booking the last one," she told them quietly. "Reynolds is looking at 20 years minimum. The others are already offering to testify against him for plea deals." "Good," Marcus said simply, jaw set. They continued their walk toward the diner where a small crowd had gathered. Linda stood at the entrance, directing people inside where tables had been pushed together. A hand-painted banner read, "Honor, Truth, Justice," in careful letters. Judge Martinez met them at the door. "We wanted to do this right," she explained, ushering them in. "The whole town needs to acknowledge what happened, both yesterday and 50 years ago." The diner was packed with familiar faces, neighbors, church members, shopkeepers, and city officials. Dr. Williams stood at the cleared counter, which served as a podium. As the Carters entered, everyone rose to their feet. "Samuel and Evelyn Carter," Dr. Williams began, his voice thick with emotion. "We gather today to honor your courage, your dignity, and your unwavering faith in justice. We also gather to apologize for doubting you, for staying silent, and for letting fear divide us." Evelyn squeezed Samuel's hand as several people nodded tearfully. Marcus stood tall behind his parents, a quiet guardian as always. Dr. Williams continued, "Thank you for showing us what true strength looks like, not just in protecting your family, but in helping expose the truth that needed to come to light." Linda stepped forward with 3 small plaques, each engraved with words of courage and perseverance. "These aren't much," she said softly, "but we wanted you to have something tangible to mark this new beginning." One by one, people came forward to shake hands, offer hugs, and share memories. Mrs. Peterson recalled how Samuel helped rebuild her porch after a storm, never asking for payment. Reverend Thompson spoke of Evelyn's years teaching Sunday school, shaping young minds with gentle wisdom. The ceremony wasn't long or formal, but it carried immense weight. Each handshake represented bridges rebuilt. Each embrace acknowledged years of unspoken pain finally healing. Jasmine, standing near the door in her detective's uniform, watched with quiet satisfaction as the community came together. She caught Marcus's eye and nodded. They both knew their work wasn't finished, but this was a solid start. Linda served coffee and her famous morning pastries, the familiar routine bringing comfort to the gathering. People lingered, sharing stories and making plans. The diner hummed with conversation and laughter. No tension, no divided seating, no suspicious glances. As the morning wore on, Samuel and Evelyn found themselves in their usual booth, now surrounded by friends, old and new. The morning sun streamed through the windows, catching the silver in their hair and highlighting the proud set of their shoulders. "Ready for a walk, my love?" Samuel asked softly as the gathering began to disperse. She smiled, that full, unguarded smile he'd fallen in love with so many years ago. "With you, always." They stood together, arms linked naturally. Decades of practice had made them graceful in their movements, each compensating for the other's rhythm. The diner bell chimed as they stepped into the morning light. The town stretched before them, familiar streets now free from old shadows. Each step was steady, unhurried, matched perfectly to one another. This was their home, had always been their home, but now finally it truly felt like one. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please share it with your friends and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. In the meantime, here are 2 hand-picked stories I think you'll love. Have a great day.